often told through the lens of the victor, when the reality of history is it's a bit more complicated than the cherry-picked stories we've been led to believe. The first groups of Native Americans crossed a bridge from Asia to North America thousands of years ago, though there is still debate about exactly how long Native Americans have been in the Americas. But some consensus have led to the point that Native Americans have been in America for at least the last 10,000 years, crossing over a land bridge from Asia, specifically Russia, to the U.S. via Alaska, connecting into Canada. According to the article, Life on the Edge, Early Maritime Cultures of the Pacific Northwest, written in American Science Quarterly Review, Volume 27, Issues 23 and 24, back in 2008, Native Americans lived according to the land until they were interrupted in the late 1400s with the landing of Christopher Columbus. After that, things took a very dark turn for Native American history, and this story that I am going to share is an expedition that took place in 1899. The Harriman expedition left Seattle on May 31st, 1899, on the steamship known as the Harriman Expedition Ship. The expedition was led by railroad magnate Edward H. Harriman, along with 23 other scientists. During the expedition, they took over 5,000 photographs throughout the voyage and expedition. These photographs were used to create souvenir albums, which comprised 554 of those images. The Harriman expedition would get back to Seattle on July 30th, 1899, after 2 months. Over the course of the expedition, they went to Glacier Bay, Sitka Yakutat Bay, Prince William Sound, Kodak Island, and the Sumpagin Islands, Unalaska, the Puthoff Island, Port Clarence, and Cape Fox, in addition to a short jaunt over to Pulver Bay on the Siberian coast. The Harriman expedition collection of photos later entered the University of Washington archive, where they would later be digitized in 1998. However, the University of Washington was not the only place where the Harriman expedition was digitized. In the early 2000s, PBS made a website all about the Harriman expedition. In 2001, the Harriman expedition retraced a century of change. In 2003, North to Alaska came out in Smithsonian Magazine. This article detailed the Harriman expedition. I also found the photographs from the expedition on the University of Washington archives. I found it thanks to looking up stuff on Alaska, and it includes a little blurb from the expedition along with some photos. The article came out in 1998, and its goal was to continue to spread awareness on the expedition and its historical value. In regards to the context of the expedition, it occurred in the same century as the famous Ross expedition, which explored the Antarctic from 1839 to 1843. However, the Ross expedition is much more well known for how it ended. Unfortunately, the ship was crushed under the ice due to extreme pressure, and most of the explorers died due to hypothermia and lack of food. Of course, the Antarctic expedition wasn't the only expedition going on at the time, or the only place being explored. The Pacific Northwest was also a curious place for expedition, famously explored by Lewis and Clark and Sacagawea from 1804 to 1806. I think it tells us a lot about the time and just how curious people were, because the world was vast and Google Maps didn't exist yet. You couldn't go onto Instagram and look stuff up. So you had to rely on explorers and curious people to learn more about the world. However, not all expeditions brought positive change. A lot of these expeditions brought colonization and wars to native peoples, and we cannot talk about this topic without talking about that. I think a lot of this relates to what we've learned in this class, because you can't talk about Pacific Northwest history without talking about the good, the bad, and the terrible, and without remembering the past. My sources will be in the description of this video. Thank you very much for watching. Have a lovely day.